What's up, everybody? Just want to thank you for tuning in to Burny's briefing room. During the episode today, we're going to show some of the art behind the rim war paint done by one of our talented artists. So we hope you enjoy watching that, and we hope you enjoy listening to the customer support podcast coming right up. Welcome back to Burny's briefing room, everybody. Today we have Ben from customer support joining us here in the briefing room. We'll be talking about some hot customer support topics, the Directly initiative, and how you guys can get the most out of talking to a customer support agent. We're going to keep the introductions a little short this time since we were asked to by the community. So without further ado, let's welcome Ben to the briefing room. How are you doing today, Ben?
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. We're excited to have you and dig deep into customer support over here at War Commander.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So why don't you go a little bit into kind of your specific responsibilities at Kixeye and, how long have you been working here and, your responsibilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start with how long I've been here. I've been here since March of 2014, I think, maybe 2013. I was a contractor for about a year and then moved on to the CS team permanently, and then now I'm a full-time permanent War Commander person. Yeah, I mean, players all know we have multiple games, so in CS, you'll start off as an agent, and then as you move up or become more of an expert, maybe you end up with one game or more that you're sort of more attached to. For me, that was War Commander. I ended up being one of the senior agents, and then now I am the associate game lead. So my job here it's really broad. CS is a broad organization. We do a lot of different things. So I do the internal wiki for agents. I do my best to track bugs in real time, especially, sort of this time of month during the events. That can become a full-time job in itself, monitoring reports and communicating with the game team. We test bugs. We do most of the knowledge base posts that come up, though we do plan to try and utilize that asset a bit more in the future. And sometimes you will see me pop up on the forums under Tanuki suit and tie. And generally that's just if Yorgon Christian or there's just something specific that I'm, that we need an answer for on the forums. We don't have someone official to go on and post immediately. So may have seen me there, but probably you haven't really had a lot of interactions with me from the community just because, I don't necessarily have the time to devote to forum interactions as much as I would like to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned, what was it, the knowledge base?
Yeah.
So, can you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, so when you go over to Kixeye.com and if you click the Get Support link, the first page you're going to hit is if you're coming from the War Commander page, you're going to hit the Zendesk Help Center, which we call the Knowledge Base. In general, whenever there's like a immediate bug that we need to alert the user base to, and it is one of those things where we want to hit as many channels as possible, then we'll put an update there for an ongoing bug under alerts. For the most part, we leave that to you over in the forum since you have a wider reach than us, but there are also articles on how to buy gold, how to check the status of your tickets, ongoing issues, what you can do on your side for general support steps. Probably if you've received a ticket from me in the last 5 years, 4 years, however long it's been, you've been pushed towards that with a support link for, you should try these steps to improve things immediately.
Awesome. So like at what point, do players go through that and then realize that like I need to escalate my issue to an agent? Like, do you see like a fine line between the two, or, can you go more into that?
The game itself is really fast paced, and when the game crashes or you have like a red box error or something just crazy happens in a battle, it's not, I think you're primed as a player. Like, I know how I would feel where you're like, wait, what? And you just want that immediate answer, So I think a lot of our players sort of jump through the support center and go straight to submitting a support ticket, which is, that's totally fine. I'm more than happy to assist players with whatever issues they have. And if it's something that's already like clearly put up on the forums or clearly put up in the knowledge bases, I may send you a link to it. But in general, I'd say there's one category of players that tends to be very stoic with their problems, and they want to find the answer for themselves unless it's something that you absolutely couldn't fix on your own side, or something that just couldn't be linked to your own side at all. And then there's maybe another side that sort of the first step is always get a ticket just in case. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with either strategy there. It's just a sort of players are all different, just like people are all different. I would say to anyone listening that, as far as like the sort of general issues you have regularly, Flash running slowly, the game crashed in battle, unless it was really severe, I would definitely suggest going through some of the performance steps in the help center first. And then, when you take it in, you can let me know, I went through this article in the help center. I tried all these steps, and none of that resolved my issue. Is there anything you can do to assist? Or, like I lost my battle in spite of doing these steps, like, et cetera, et cetera. And that generally, that kind of stuff will speed things up for players, because then I know what you've gone through, what steps you've already tried, so we can avoid doing the same things over and over again.
I've been seeing on the forums a lot recently, and the moderators escalate this issue to me, a lot more than when I first started a few months back. It seems like that when players reach the $50 threshold for accessing customer support, it seems like it doesn't kick in automatically, and they still have to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that a new issue, and kind of what's going on there?
Yeah, no, that's oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback. Maybe I'm getting loud. So it's an unfortunate issue that's the case. But what basically happens is the War Commander database is big. There are quite a few players who play. We have our support system through Zendesk, which has all of the support accounts. And then we have all of the spend and stuff is actually tied to your War Commander account on the Kixeye servers. And those two systems sync up regularly. And one of the tasks that happens when those two systems sync up is we look at change in spend and whether people have broken that support threshold. So when everything works right, it can take up to 3 to 5 days, I would say, in the worst cases. If you hit that threshold right at the end of the cycle, and I think it happens, every 5 days or something like that. In the worst case, there are cases where maybe a player had been banned manually in the past, either for some sort of chat thing or maybe cheating or whatever it is. You'd been temp banned in the past, and until about a year ago, that process would automatically untag you for a bunch of support things. So that now, if you now break the threshold, like if you had been ticketing before that threshold was implemented about 3 years ago, and then you're breaking the threshold now, but the last thing that had happened between you and CS was like you had been temp banned for cheating, then it could be the case that flag just failed to be re-implemented on your account just because of the mechanics of how those flags are added through Zendesk. And then, if that's the case, if you go a week after breaking that $50 threshold and you still can't access support, that would be the case where, contact us via the forums or via Twitter, I believe. Generally it'll get forwarded from you to me or from you to John, and we'll go through and make sure that everything is set up right and get you into support.
Yeah, definitely. I think the best like plan of attack for players who are experiencing that is to probably reach out to a moderator on the forums or through our new Discord server.
Yeah,
and then,
absolutely. That too.
they can escalate it to me, and then I can get that to you guys so you can manually get them in there.
Yeah, and it's generally a really quick process once we have the IDs in our hand. It's just unfortunately, nature of the system. If you didn't have access before, it's hard to get in contact to make sure your access is correct. But that's that Discord server. Everybody definitely join it, especially for everybody, but especially if you're not supported, because it's good for you to have a contact point with us where you can reach out and we can look into things immediately.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been, private messaging with players who have issues and escalating it to you guys. So it's definitely a helpful resource, not only for us, but for the community as well.
Yeah.
So join the Discord.
Yeah, definitely do it, people.
All right. So what are some of the most common issues you guys see, coming into your ticket queues? And what tips do you have, for those players who reach out to you?
Yeah. So most common tickets, I think it won't be any surprise to anyone who's played for a long time that generally our most common ticketed issue is performance in general. Just sort of the game is laggy. The game is not running as quickly as I'd like it to be. I was disconnected, that sort of thing. And then I would say probably our second most ticketed item is repair issues, and that's something that's been a long time issue. That system has had issues for a long time, and so it's not incredibly uncommon for there to be issues with base saves. I think we've reduced it by about 75% in the last year, but it is still probably our second biggest ticketer. Mm-hmm. As far as what players can do for those, as far as general performance goes, I know players hate to hear this, and I would hate to hear it too. But there's an article on the knowledge base that is under performance problem, and it is latency, connectivity, and then in parentheses lagging. And it just has the most basic sort of troubleshooting steps for diagnosing connection issues. The thing about Flash is that Flash in general is going to be really reliant on the environment it's running in. If the connection that you have is a little bit slow, you're going to see problems with Flash. Definitely, if you're running a lot of tabs, or if you're running near the top of your RAM, your system's RAM that it can actually allocate to tasks, you're going to see problems with Flash. And a lot of these steps are just the sort of general troubleshooting steps that you would get from nearly any customer support department for, problems with loading. And the reason they are is because, they help in most cases. They will help at least a little bit. And that's not trying to downplay the fact that we do have server issues sometimes. A lot of our bases do have a lot of moving parts, and that can be it can mean that you'll have points where the gameplay requires very little connection, and then you'll be in a PvP battle all of a sudden, and you'll be in a situation where the demand on your connection for bandwidth is going to spike really sharply for that short period of high intensity. And we're always working to smooth things out on the performance end of things on our side, just to try and more efficiently manage the data going back and forth between us, and also to identify and sort of shave off places where there's either data being handled inefficiently or just data that doesn't need to be handled, being handled by your side of things as a player. There are some forum posts that I'm sure you could point players to where, our previous head of engineering had gone over some of the plans for how we were improving support or improving performance in game. And those processes, we may not always have an open forum post where we're talking about hey, we did this thing or we did that thing today. But those processes are always ongoing. We have a very, very talented engineering team, and I'd say that's sort of like a point of pride on their part to see like where they can remove data, where they can remove load from the game for players. I think recently we saw those combat improvements where I think there was, before, it was about like 300 or 400 individual messages that had to go from the server to the client per minute or something. It was a very high number, and it's just because of the way the Flash is. The architecture requires sometimes a lot of talk back and forth. But one of our engineers found out how to simplify that down to something like 10 per minute. This is all sort of abstract talk, but like for the player side, for performance in combat, that's a very noticeable difference. Unfortunately, with events, with the speed at which we're updating the game, weekly updates is pretty fast paced for a game like ours. There's always going to be new elements added, and every time you add a new element to the game, you're adding a point at which there are unknowns in the system, and that's going to cause potential lag. And we're always working to diagnose these things as quickly as possible. Pretty much any time we have new issues come up, if you ticket and I get your ticket, I'm going to take down your account information. I'm going to probably, if it's something I've never seen before but seems like pretty problematic, I'm probably going to load your game. I'm probably going to try and test things out. I'm probably going to try and reproduce on my side. And then I'm going to try and talk to the game team and make sure that they're aware of it. We're going to try and sort it out. But that being said, those basic steps on the knowledge base will help you out when it's just general congestion in the system. And even if we are having a specific issue with our servers, or there's some sort of issue in the game that's on our side, those steps will still help you out because you're going to maximize the leverage you have on your own system.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up too was when I'm escalating these issues that I see on the forums or Discord to you guys, I notice a lot of players playing on unsupported devices or browsers. So I kind of wanted to get your take on that. Like, how many people do you see like on a daily basis who fall under that category, and like what do you do to help them?
A lot, so our sort of general strategy and support for that sort of thing changes over time, but I would say if you're trying to play from a mobile device, which is something I see very regularly, surprisingly, players on an Android device, that they have like a specific type of browser app that allows them to look like a desktop when they're accessing a website. Because Android can run Flash, so you can it is potentially true that you can play War Commander on your tablet. However, the game itself wasn't designed for tablet. It wasn't designed for a touchscreen interface. And when you have to play a game that's already, we're a 6-year-old Flash game or a 7-year-old Flash game. I think we're actually sort of like 5.5 right now as far as public game. But, the game's been sort of in development for 7 years or so. We try and keep the technology stack that we use as up to date as possible, but the fact that we're built in Flash is just sort of one of those natural facts that we have to always contend with. So when you try and play on a mobile device, you're definitely playing from a non-wired connection. You're playing wirelessly, which is going to slow things down a bit. And then you're introducing like several layers of software above the game just to be able to interface with it properly. That's going to cause a huge amount of trouble for you. So that would be my first thing. And I say that specifically because I just saw a ticket like this like an hour ago. Someone sent me a screenshot and was like, I'm having lag in the event. And then the screenshot was clearly a mobile device. And, usually I try not to press on that too hard. But whether you're playing on a mobile device or you're playing on a computer that's pretty far below our specifications, which isn't super uncommon either. It's not that you won't be able to play the game at all. It's that we can't guarantee you that the performance will be good enough for you to play competitively. And it just sort of reminds me of one of our older EPs who's no longer with the company. He explained it to me as technically you can run Flash on almost any computer, but the question is, can you run Flash well? And that's really the defining factor there. And whether it's your browser or your system, we test for a limited number of environments just out of necessity. With PCs and with Android, when you're playing on those platforms that are incredibly customizable, there's basically an infinite amount of different variations you could have to your setup, your browser, the operating system you're running, what processes you have running in the background. Do you have things downloading? Are you mining Bitcoin in the background? Are you watching? You know what I mean? Like, there are so many variables there that we could never ever tease out unless, like, I was sitting right next to you and just looking at your computer screen itself, that we are forced by necessity to limit the things we test for. So some players love Puffin browser. Unfortunately, if you take it in and you're saying, like, I'm playing on Puffin and I'm having all these issues, my first reply to you is going to be like, unfortunately, we don't support the Puffin browser. You should try on Chrome or Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox, and let me know if you still have those issues. Because what we know about those larger, or Safari or Opera, but what we know about those larger browsers is that, you know, they have a dedicated support team for the browsers themselves. So if we or the game team needs to get in contact with the people who make those browsers, we can. They have a regular update schedule and cadence. So if there are security issues that come up, they get fixed very quickly in those browsers. Those browsers are really widespread. So we know that, you know, we're not choosing 3 browsers that no one uses and forcing people into an uncommon niche. In general, those browsers are popular because they're so good. And people take it for granted how hard it is just to build a good internet browser, but it really is. And so, you know, a lot of times when we see third-party browsers that are sort of, you know, not really widely supported, there's a reason for that. And it's because, like, they may be good at doing one thing, but they may be really bad at other things. They may handle the Flash part of the game well, but, you know, they suck up bandwidth, or they're sucking up RAM, or you know, for all the problems that Chrome has, which, you know, I'm not going to say Chrome's like a perfect browser, but for all the problems it does have, it's incredibly stable, and the team that manages it does a really good job of it. And so generally, I recommend Chrome. But back to the idea of unsupported devices and stuff, you know, we try not to lean on this too much in support lately. You know, like, we've made it a priority. Me and John have made it a priority that, like, you know, if we have a player who's, like, clearly, you know, your device is so slow or old, or you're playing on a tablet, and it's just, you're going to see more problems than it's probably worth. You know, we'll try and let you know, like, maybe you should try and upgrade the computer. Maybe, you know, don't play on a tablet. But for the most part, if you're close, I want to help you more than anything else. You know, I think there is a tendency on the community side to believe that we're looking for reasons to not help you. You know, like, we're looking for some way to blame it on you as the player. That's not the case. The case is that, you know, we want to point you to the things that we're allowed to support you on. And we want to point you towards the most effective steps that we know about that can fix things instantly. Because, you know, if like we can talk about, like, this event, right? So Road to Hell is going on now. We've had some performance issues. That's no secret. Part of that was because of the spotlights in some of the bases. So the skinny on that, I guess, is that the spotlights, when they hit your units, they cause the spawning bases, the spawning buildings in those particular event bases to spawn, like, 15 units at once, right? So you get swarmed by enemies when you're in the spotlight. And that works really well in a test environment without, like, a massive amount of users. And it worked really well even when there was a very high number of users. But when we got to, like, peak levels, you know, you have 25, 30,000 players all hitting these targets at once, causing 30, 45 units to spawn simultaneously. We end up flooding the servers with a bunch of messages, and that causes a bunch of lag issues. It caused battle server issues that we had to go in and put a fix in to resolve, right? When players ticket in for that sort of an issue, especially early on, like before Sunday, we knew there was an issue, but we weren't 100% sure of what the issue was. So when I get reports for an issue like that, my response is probably going to be something along the lines of, we're investigating these issues. We're talking to the game team. We understand it's frustrating and we do want to help out. We're going to keep investigating these issues until we know what they are and can say we've put some fixes in place. I may credit you a little bit to help make up for the trouble that you're dealing with. And then I'm going to give you probably those very general performance issues, those performance troubleshooting steps. And that's going to be about the extent of what I can actually manually do for you in that instant. And so a lot of times, like I was actually looking at my customer support survey results earlier today. It's always something that's kind of fun to go through. But a lot of the times when I get a bad report from players, it's something like the issue is still there. The bug is still there.
Right.
0 out of 5. And that's fine. I understand the sentiment there. But you have to understand that support isn't engineering and we're not game developers. So while I have maybe my own hunches about what could be causing an issue, for me to move that forward to the game team, I'm basically going to gather a bunch of IDs, try and test and reproduce the issue, and then forward that up to the team where they will sort of test what I've shown and then trying to determine where in the code the issues are coming from. And that's not an instantaneous process. So generally, if it's an issue that we can immediately help you out with, then I'm going to give you workaround steps that I know work, or I'm going to explain to you where the bug is coming from and how to avoid it, if I have those kinds of steps available. If I don't, I'm going to try and give you the tips that I know best for improving the sort of general issues you're having. And that's usually going to be like general troubleshooting support. That doesn't mean that the process of our investigating and working on a fix for that bug is over at that point. The fix came in a couple days later, and while we are still seeing some performance issues in game, just seems to be mainly standard event issues right now. That issue was fixed, and it was fixed in probably 3 days. And while we hate to see a bug stay alive for even a day, excuse me, that's relatively quick. And but it's also not the sort of thing I can fix for you at the time of your ticket. And I would just like to stress that with players is like, just because the specific bug you're dealing with when you submit the ticket isn't resolved by the time you've received a response doesn't mean that there will be no resolution or that we're trying to kick you out of support. We're not just trying to cycle you through the doors. It's generally something where like we do what we can immediately and then we work on a long-term fix behind the scenes. But if it's something we can fix, like the trophy issue we're having right now, we've confirmed that there were issues with purchasing the trophy. Some players were able to purchase it early and then didn't get the trophy. And we know what the issue is. We know what the problem is. And, if you had that issue, you can send a ticket to support and we'll get you your trophy because, it's pretty straightforward for us at that point.
So why don't we move on a little bit to the Directly initiative? Can you kind of do like a brief overview of what Directly is, how it affects the current ticket queues that you see, and some of the results that we're seeing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, I'd like to just shout out to the Directly agents out there. If you're hearing this, thank you so much for participating. You have been doing really well so far. We have customer satisfaction sort of surveys that go out. Y'all are killing it. Partially because you're so fast. So just to sort of go over briefly, I mean, if you play War Commander, which anyone listening to this obviously hopefully does, our player base is really invested and really involved in the game. It's a big part of their day. So we have an incredible amount of players that have been playing the game daily for 4 to 5 years almost at this point. And the Directly program taps into that in a really interesting way. We are able to offer like sort of in-game rewards to players for helping to answer the more sort of general tickets that we get. So general questions, issues with lag, what does this do? How do I get this? Those sorts of simpler questions that don't require like tools or manipulation of the game itself can be answered by our Directly agents, and they're very fast. 5 to 10 minutes generally on those tickets. The experts are selected by the Directly team in conjunction with our management here and the game team. So we have a set of markers that we look for. They'll sort through the player base for players who potentially fit that mold. And then the final lists are sort of vetted by a combination of the Directly team and our team here, just to make sure that everybody who ends up on that list is somebody who we would want facing forward for us, and talking to the community. And so far, they've been doing really, really well. They then go through some testing to make sure that there aren't going to be any problems for them answering the questions. And they're in the game, or they're in the game. They're in the system. They're answering tickets. And the way that works is when you submit a ticket, the same thing that would have happened before still happens. That ticket goes into our queue, and it goes into the list where I'm pulling tickets from, and all of our other Kickside agents are pulling tickets from. But a certain number of those tickets, the tickets that are sort of designated as being within the realm of Directly's expertise, those tickets are put into a second queue as well. When they go into that second queue, which is what the Directly agents see, all that is going through is the text of the ticket itself, so what your actual request is. There's the title of the ticket, and then I believe your username in game, but that's it. So there's no identifying information regarding your account. There's nothing there that wouldn't be available to a player, say, if you had posted a question in the forum. So your username, what your issue is, and that's pretty much it. So that's one thing just to be clear about. Players don't need to worry about anything like none of your information that I'm seeing that's more personal information potentially, or the back end account information. None of that's being seen by player experts. In general, experts can answer a ticket within 5 to 10 minutes, whereas you might be waiting 24 hours or 36 hours to get an answer from us. All the responses from the experts are handled the same way, and I definitely want to go over this really quick just to be clear of players, because one thing we've been seeing is that once a Directly agent responds to a ticket, we'll have players who don't realize that response has been made. And then we'll get a reply on the ticket that's something like, you haven't answered my ticket in 2 days. What's going on? When there's actually been a reply from a Directly agent in their system. So what'll happen is you'll get a response from Directly that says, hello, while your ticket awaits a response by a Kickstarter representative, your issue will also be visible by a hand-selected War Commander expert. These experts will review your message and determine if they can provide a speedy resolution. If they can assist you, they will reply to your issue directly while maintaining your place in the customer support queue. Please click here to see updates to your ticket. And then there'll be a link to the ticket. And this is what's really important, everybody, is that link is going to take you to the Directly system. And that's where you're going to see any answer from these player experts. So if you are expecting to see the answer pop up in your normal ticket, that's not where you'll see it. You'll just see that Directly response. So definitely check that link just in case an answer has been given to you. And if you are answered by Directly and you're satisfied with your answer there, that's fantastic. Just you don't need to reply to your ticket on our side. Just go about your day and enjoy the game, and the ticket will be closed automatically. If you do feel like you need more information or you want to talk to one of our agents here, just respond to that original ticket in the Kickside queue and let us know exactly what it is that you still need a hand with. Oh, and you need to do that within 48 hours. That is one thing I would just check. I want to make sure I knew what the time frame was at. So if a player expert replies, you have 48 hours to respond back to the ticket. Otherwise, the system will close the ticket automatically. And if you do see that your issue is closed without a response, please be sure to check your email and the link provided to make sure that there wasn't just a response that wasn't noticed when the first ticket went through. And that's pretty much the basics of it. We're sort of expanding it now. We're working on what tools we can provide to that group to improve the support that they're able to provide. Because so far it's become a real nice blend. If you have a complex ticket that needs a lot of back end work, it'll go to us. But if it's a short ticket, and it's a quick, easy ticket, it'll go generally to directly. So we're able to speed up the overall wait time in the queue that way by quite a bit, just by removing a lot of the tickets that our support agents here maybe don't need to get involved with as much anymore. So far it's a real big win-win. And for any of you players out there, if you've seen an email from directly offering a slot on the team, maybe check it out. It's really highly rated by the players who are involved, and it definitely is improving things for the players who are ticketing in. Highly suggested.
I see a lot of players, especially players like escalating their issues to the mods about, losing access to their account. I think it's like whether, their account is hacked somehow, or they forget their password or lose access to their email. But we do see this, occurring more often. So I was just wondering, like, what kind of suggestions do you have to players, to help better secure their accounts?
Absolutely. So War Commander, we do seem to see a bit more compromises than we do in our other games. What I would say to players is that when you are signing up to Facebook, make sure that you enable a two-factor authentication with either an email and preferably an email and a phone number. The number way that we see people get their accounts hacked is through Facebook. And there are a lot of different ways it can happen. There's sort of spear phishing, which is if you're a person who's trying to compromise accounts, if you know what your targets are interested in, it becomes fairly easy. Not fairly easy, but I would say when you're going after 1,000 players at once, the odds that one person is going to mistake your fake Kixeye email for a real one and accidentally give you their account information is not minor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like they know that you're a Kixeye player. They know that you're a War Commander player. Like if your Facebook's not private, they might know your first and last name. If someone's entire job that they're dedicating themselves to is tricking people into accidentally giving them their War Commander or Kixeye.com login information, they have a lot of misinformation they can use to try and convince you that they're actually working for us. So the first thing I would say, do not trust any email that asks you for your account information, for your password or your email password. We will never ask you for your password. I do not need your password for anything, and no support agent ever will. I would suggest definitely having two-factor authentication so that if your Facebook does get compromised, you can steal it back, basically, because they can't have your phone number, because they can't have your phone. I mean, there are ways to spoof that, but then you're talking like really, really serious hackers, and it's just not often that we see anything that sophisticated. If you have a Google account, I would highly suggest you use the Google Authenticator on your phone so that even if your Google account is hacked, you can get that back. And this isn't just for War Commander. I would just say for like life in general, there's no such thing as a perfectly secure system. And we're seeing that more and more every day as computers get faster. So the best way to do it is to have multiple layers of security there, and having two-factor everywhere you can. And having authenticator type stuff everywhere you can is going to be the best way to make sure that your account stays in your hands. Other than that,
Definitely.
Big passwords, 10 character passwords, and change it every 6 months.
Yep. Don't make your password like password one, or
God,
you're
yeah.
just asking for trouble.
Yeah, and never give me your password, period. In support, please don't ever tell me what your password is. Don't ever tell me what your credit card number is. I love all of you, but I can't tell you how many times I've had a War Commander player be like, hey, my account is compromised. My name is this. My password is this. What do you think the problem is? And I'm like, well, that's the problem. I have a feeling you probably said that before to someone who wasn't me. And it's no offense, like we're all moving into this sort of digital world together as a society globally, and the rules are different than they were for passwords and stuff even 5 or 10 years ago. It moves really quickly. So, I'll never need your password. Don't ever tell me your password. And if you do tell me your password, I'm going to reset your password and tell you to set up a new password because it's not worth it to do it. So definitely keep all of that information safe, even if they're your best friend. A lot of what I hear from players is like, I let a friend of mine look in my base. And they generally mean like I gave him my account details and let him log into my base to check out to play on my base. Or I was going to be out of town for 2 weeks. So my friend, am I still here? Okay.
So I can still hear you.
So my friend, I gave him my account information so that he could check on my base while I was gone and make sure my upgrades kept going. I can't tell you how bad an idea that is. I've seen a very large amount of accounts hacked like that. There are also, as much as I'd hate to say it, if you've ever downloaded something like a cheat engine or some Grayside Matter or any of those other programs that players like to occasionally try to sneak in for a little bit of extra power to their bases without accusing anyone of anything, if you've ever downloaded a program like that, you should run a full malware check and a full antivirus check, and you should change all of your passwords, and you should be very, very sure that you have two-factor authentication. We tend to see compromised accounts coinciding with accounts that have past cheating on them with a very, very high rate because, they're not giving those sorts of programs away for free, They're very likely Trojan horses. You do probably, well, you don't anymore because we broke most of the cheats, and we're going to break the rest of them. But in the past, you may have been able to get away with some minor alterations to your game using something like that. But you don't pay no cost for it, is what I would say there.
Yeah, well, one other kind of thing I see popping up from time to time are, players, I think, getting banned from Facebook and they haven't set up their account on kicksci.com. And then something happens and they lose access to their account, even though their War Commander account is still active. But yeah.
Yeah, that one we actually can't help
with.
Okay,
what's the process for that then?
So if you have support access and you can still get a ticket in, ticket us from the main account and let us know, I still know my login, I can still log in using the Facebook F on Kicksci, but my Facebook.com account is down and I want to make sure that I have Kicksci access. Send me a ticket saying that, and what I will do generally is I'll take the email you're using, I'll assign it to the Kicksci.com side of your account, which was never set up. And then I'll reset the password. And what that will do is it'll just clear out any sort of account information. You'll get an email that says your password's been changed. And once you get that email from our system that says your password's been changed, and it won't say anything else, it'll just say like your password on Kicksci.com has been reset. Once you get that email from me, you'll be able to use the password reset on Kicksci.com, and essentially you'll be able to build yourself a Kicksci login using that. And then your Kicksci login from then on would be your email and the password you set up on Kicksci, or your Kicksci.com username and that password you set up. If you can't get in on the original account, but you never had a Facebook or you never had a Kicksci email or a Kicksci login set up, but you had been playing on Facebook, you could either contact you on the forum or start a new Kicksci.com account and then submit a ticket from there. Just be sure that you include every bit of detail you have for the account in question. So what was the old email? If you knew your old user ID, that would be very helpful. The name on the Facebook account sometimes is very helpful. And then what else do we need? Oh, and then don't be surprised if we ask you to confirm your ID with us. I know that's a bit of a pain for players to have to submit a form of identification. But from our side, we're just basically getting a ticket from someone with no credentials that's claiming that they are person X or person Y. We have to take that measure. We don't want to be a part of the problem there. So we may ask you to confirm your identification. Just understand, it's a necessary evil, and it will be the first step in getting you back into the account. In the same way we handle compromised accounts. If your account was compromised and you had to submit a ticket from another account completely, we're going to have to ask you for your ID. One other thing I would just say really, really quickly is that's why it's really important to use your real name when you sign up for an account with KIXEYE, and to use a real email. Because that's how we verify who you are when something like this happens. If you're using a Facebook that the name on it was, John Fakenstein, when you made that account, that name was, I know, how did I guess? But when you made your account, when you first started your account, that name is imprinted onto your permanent KIXEYE.com record. In our archives permanently, the first name that's associated with your account, whether it's, the name you use on KIXEYE.com or the name you used on Facebook, is going to be saved there. So if you used your real name, it's usually a really straightforward process. If you had no name set up at all, or you used a fake name, it's going to be much more complicated, and there are a lot more cases where the outcome is going to be me telling you that unfortunately I'm not going to be able to actually support you or help you anymore. Because if I can't confirm with 100% proof positive evidence that you are the owner of this account, I can't give it to you. There's too much risk involved with making that our default position. So while there are ways for us to verify who you are. A lot of times we'll use IP or something like that. Using your real name from the start is generally just such a better idea.
Yeah, it's mine.
Okay, I just want to make sure you got
it. No problem. Sorry, I got kicked out of my room. And I left my phone in there.
Oh, yeah. The meeting rooms.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they're in high demand. For those of you listening, I just want you to know that for us to meet up for something like this is rough, just even in itself. Our buildings are not huge, and we have a lot of teams here, and so Burny is he puts himself into the way of harm to set these podcasts up.
It's a very lengthy process, but we're trying our best over here.
You'll have the entire account team come in and be like, hey, so we have serious business stuff to do here.
Yeah, I know it was basically the entire Rogue Assault team being like, hey, we need this room. Yeah. And I was like, oh, crap, okay.
Okay, but I'm here by myself. That should be enough to occupy this whole room.
It didn't help that I was in the biggest meeting room in the entire building.
Yeah. Well, that's always how they set up. With our weekly CS meetings, for those of you who are on the outside, CS and CA and the forums work together really closely, and we'll do a weekly meeting. And sometimes it'll just be Burny and John on that side. It'll be two people, and I'll turn on my webcam because I am remote. But I'll turn on my webcam, and it'll be those two in a banquet hall looking meeting room. It's 20 seats with two people in the room.
All right. Well, I had one more question for you. I know we're running a little short on time here. I just want to ask you, what are what's the main information you need from players when they're writing in tickets? I know we tell them to send screenshots or send videos, and they hate when we tell them that, but what's the most important stuff you need?
Yeah. So Absolutely. Screenshots, if you have them, are so good, especially if it's like a really weird issue that you've never seen before and you think maybe I haven't seen before. A screenshot that shows the issue happening, a screenshot that shows like if there's like a tech discrepancy. Like when I look at this level of this particular tech item, it shows a spinning gear. Players sending in a screenshot of that is so useful for me in my process, because then I don't have to live load your account and then double check on my account. I can just say like, oh, okay, well, this player is obviously seeing this. I'll check my account. If I see it too, we can immediately get a very specific type of bug in the system, like a ticket to the game team. If it's just on one account, and if you say I'm seeing this on my account, then I would have to live load both accounts, like your account and someone else's. So when I load your account, there's a chance that I'm going to knock you out of your account to do so. And then B, it's just going to double the time. It goes from being like a 4 to 5 minute response time as far as for me writing the response out to being something like 7 to 10 minutes. And it doesn't seem like a very big difference, but you have to keep in mind that I'm probably hitting anywhere between 85 and 120 tickets in a day. As much as I wish I could give everyone, a 20, 30 minutes of my time, it's not always feasible. So the more information you can provide me with in the form of screenshots, and even better, videos, especially if it's a combat issue. My sandstorm is spawning Razorbacks instead of drones. If it's something crazy, like it's just a crazy thing, definitely get a video of it for me. And especially if it's something that you see rarely, like every so often when I try and hit this base, I see this really crazy issue. Get a video. Oh my God, I will love you if you have a video, because then I can just go straight to trying to test it on my account. Because I know if we see it on 2 or 3 accounts, it's game-wide probably. And any game-wide issue is going to be a much easier sell for me to get the game team involved. Because again, players probably assume we have a very, very large team for all of our games. The size of a dev team for a game like War Commander isn't really huge. It's 30 people tops. Our engineering resources are always in high demand, always high demand. And we feel bad when we have to ask them for like an engineer to look at something that they don't actually need to look at. The more you give us, the more I can give the game team, and the more quickly they can go through the process of determining what is and isn't a bug, and how to fix that bug. If you have this information also, the date that this happened, what day was it when you had the issue, what time of day, always good too, just especially during an event, because then we can look at our charts and see like, oh, there was a spike on this server around that same time. Just the more specific you can be, the better. Especially if you have an issue that you can make happen. If you're like, if I do this, then this will happen. A lot of times I'll see that reported as, like say it was like, if I deploy the sandstorm and then undeploy the sandstorm and then redeploy the sandstorm, then the sandstorm's main weapon will then be flamethrower. Like that probably would never happen. That's a very weird bug just as far as like the way the system works. I don't think it would be possible. But if it was the case that you had like a very complicated reproduction process to make a bug happen, the best way to send it to me would not be sandstorm has flamethrower. And that's a lot of times what I get. And it's not an offense to, it's not like me being like, come on, players. Because I understand like you're trying to get in and out of support as quickly as you can. You want to get back to the battle. And maybe you're just trying to let me know of a bug that like doesn't even hurt you. So from your perspective, like, you're doing me a favor. And I do appreciate it. I really do. When players come in and make me aware of bugs that I didn't know about, I really do appreciate that, because that's how we get these bugs fixed. But if all you say is sandstorm has a flamethrower, it doesn't give me a lot to go on, and it's probably going to lead us into a long support ticket, where I'm like, well, what do you mean that the sandstorm has a flamethrower? I'm trying to make this happen in my base, and I'm not seeing it right now. And you're gonna be like, geez, man, it has a flamethrower. I don't know what you want me. You know what I mean? And sometimes those sorts of scenarios, which could be much smoother, with the right information, turn into pretty rocky ones. So just always keep that in mind. Imagine you're explaining this to someone who's never played the game even. Try and give me the most details you possibly can. I'm not going to hold it against you if you treat me like you're trying to explain how to use a cell phone to your grandma. That's fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Yeah, and you guys see me, doing the same kind of stuff on the forum.
Exactly.
Asking for more information so that, it's much easier to escalate to the dev team because, when there's a video involved that clearly shows, what's wrong, it makes it much easier for developers to pinpoint the issue.
Yeah, and another thing is back to the sort of relationship between the forum and support. When you all send Burny good reproduction steps with videos, clear bug reproduction and that kind of stuff, generally, that means he can just turn to CS and be like, hey, are you seeing reports of this? And even if I'm not getting the clearest reports, but I'm getting something that sounds just like what that video shows me, I can immediately be like, yeah, we have at least a few, rather than having to, if there isn't very much background information from one side and it's just sort of like, hey, I'm getting some sort of vague reports about this issue. Are you seeing this? Generally, I'm not going to immediately bite. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say, yeah, we should definitely get this escalated to the game team. But instead it'll be more like, well, I'm seeing things that could be like that, but it's kind of vague. Let me do some tests and we'll see. You see what you can find. I'll see what I can find. We'll talk again later. Obviously that's a slower process. So, it's in your best interest, whether you're talking to us on the forum or you're talking to us in support or you're talking to us on Discord, to be as detailed and as specific in your descriptions of things as possible.
Definitely.
It's just it will help us.
Yep. All right, guys. I think that's all the time we have for today. We're a little bit over.
By.
I know. Geez, we were just going nonstop. But I want to thank everyone for watching. We hope you took something out of this episode of Burny's Briefing Room. And I am CM Burny, and my partner here is Ben. And we hope you have a great day.
Take it easy, everybody. Good luck out there.